The silence in the Galactic Council chambers was absolute. Captain Jake Morris felt it press against his skin like a physical weight as he walked through the massive doorway. Above him, the dome stretched higher than any cathedral on Earth, carved from black stone that seemed to swallow light. Thousands of beings from across known space filled the tiered seats, their forms ranging from crystalline to gaseous to mechanical. Not one of them spoke. Not one of them moved. Jake's boots echoed on the polished floor. Behind him, Lieutenant Amara Cole and Engineer David Chen matched his stride. They were humanity's entire diplomatic presence at this summit. 50 years after making first contact, Earth had finally been invited to witness galactic governance. Jake had expected debate, negotiation, the messy clash of competing interests. Instead, he'd walked into a tomb. At the chamber's center stood the Zrath. Even among aliens, they were nightmares. 9 feet tall, encased in segmented armor that looked grown rather than forged, with faces that were all sharp angles and too many eyes. High Commander Vectress occupied the central platform, his forearms folded across his chest. When he spoke, his voice reverberated through hidden speakers, translated into every language simultaneously. The Council recognizes the human delegation. Vectress didn't look at Jake. You come seeking membership. You come seeking protection. You come as all species come, to kneel. Jake stopped at the designated marker on the floor. The silence stretched. He could feel thousands of alien eyes on him, waiting. This was a test. Humanity's first impression would define their place in galactic society forever. We come as equals, Jake said carefully, to learn, to contribute. A sound rippled through the chamber. Not quite laughter, darker than that. Vectress finally looked down at him. Equals. How refreshing. He turned to address the assembly. Delegates, the humans believe themselves equals. Perhaps we should demonstrate what equality means in the Galactic Council. One of the Zrath guards dragged a small alien forward. The creature was barely 3 feet tall, covered in soft blue fur, with large eyes that leaked something like tears. It tried to speak, but the guard slammed it to the floor. This delegate spoke without permission, Vectress announced. It questioned resource allocation. It forgot its place. He drew a weapon that hummed with barely contained energy. Equality, human, means understanding hierarchy. It means silence when your betters speak. Jake's hand moved toward his sidearm before Amara gripped his shoulder. The Zrath guard was already stepping back. Vectress aimed at the small alien's head. "Stop," Jake said. Vectress paused. The entire chamber seemed to hold its breath. "You would challenge Zrath authority?" Vectress asked. "On your first day among the stars?" Jake looked at the small alien trembling on the floor. He looked at the thousands of delegates watching in absolute silence. He understood now. This wasn't governance. It was tyranny, polished and formalized and accepted. "I'm asking you not to murder someone for speaking," Jake said. Vectress smiled. It was the most terrifying expression Jake had ever seen. Then he pulled the trigger. The small alien's body jerked once and went still. The blue fur began to smoke. "Now," Vectress said, stepping over the corpse, "let us discuss humanity's place. You have one small world, 3 billion people, no significant military fleet. You exist because we have not yet decided you shouldn't. Is this understood?" Every instinct screamed at Jake to draw his weapon, but Amara's hand on his shoulder reminded him. They were 3 humans in a chamber with thousands of aliens and armed Wrath guards at every exit. The ESS Horizon was Earth's only interstellar-capable ship, and it couldn't outrun a Zrath destroyer. "Understood," Jake said, the word tasting like poison. "Excellent. Then here are your terms. Humanity will provide labor. 40% of your industrial output will be transferred to Zrath administration. Your military development will cease. You will accept Zrath overseers on Earth to ensure compliance. In exchange, we will not sterilize your planet." Vectress paused. "Do you accept these terms?" The silence returned, heavier than before. Jake felt the weight of 3 billion lives on his shoulders. He thought about his daughter Maya, who was 7 years old and wanted to be an astronaut. He thought about humanity's dreams of exploring the stars, of finding friends among the cosmos. He looked around the chamber. Not one delegate met his eyes. They all looked down or away. Decades of this. Centuries, maybe? Species after species coming here with hope and leaving as slaves. I need to consult with my government, Jake said. You need to answer now, Vectress replied. Accept, or the Zrath Third Fleet will be in Earth orbit within a week. We will demonstrate what happens to species who waste our time. Amara's fingers dug into Jake's shoulder. Chen had gone pale. Jake knew what he was supposed to say. He knew the smart choice. The survival choice. Instead, he thought about Maya again. About what he'd tell her when she asked what the aliens were like. What humanity's place in the galaxy was. He couldn't tell her they'd become slaves without even trying to stand. Jake looked directly at Vectress. He didn't shout. He didn't raise his weapon. He spoke one word, clearly and firmly, in a voice that carried to every corner of the silent chamber. No. For 3 full seconds, nothing happened. The word hung in the air like a thrown grenade. Then the chamber erupted. Delegates surged to their feet, some in anger, some in shock. Others in something that might have been hope. The Zrath guards moved toward Jake, weapons raised. Vectress held up one armored hand, stopping them. No, Vectress repeated. You said no? Humanity doesn't accept your terms? Jake said. His heart hammered, but his voice stayed steady. We came here for partnership, not slavery. If that's not available, we'll leave. You'll die, Vectress said simply. Your species will end. For one word. Then we'll die free, Jake replied. The chamber's chaos intensified. A crystalline being near the front was shouting something in a language the translators couldn't parse. A 3-headed delegate had all its mouths open in what might have been laughter or terror. The Zrath guards formed a tighter circle around Vectress. Then a new voice cut through the noise. It was ancient and clear, and carried authority that made even Vectress turn. Enough! The fighting stopped. The shouting died. Every being in the chamber turned toward the source of the voice. Jake saw movement in the highest tier, where the shadows were deepest. A figure emerged, tall and slender, wrapped in robes that seemed woven from starlight itself. As she descended the steps, Jake realized she was humanoid, but definitely not human. Her skin held a faint luminescence, her eyes were solid silver, and she moved with a grace that seemed to ignore gravity. The Elysian Queen, Amara whispered. I thought they were extinct. The Queen reached the chamber floor and walked directly toward Jake. The Zrath guards parted for her without being asked. She stopped 3 feet from him and studied his face with those silver eyes. Captain Jake Morris of Earth, she said, you have spoken a word that has not been heard in this chamber for 87 years. Your Majesty, Jake said, unsure of proper protocol. I meant no disrespect to the council. Disrespect? The Queen's laugh was like music. You have done something far more dangerous than disrespect, Captain. You have reminded us what courage sounds like. She turned to address the assembly. Her voice carried effortlessly. I am Queen Lyra of Elysia, last of the ancient lines, observer of this council since before most of your species knew fire. I have watched the Zrath grow from raiders to empire. I have watched you all accept tyranny piece by piece, telling yourselves it was pragmatism, wisdom, survival. Her voice hardened. It was cowardice. Vectress stepped forward. The Elysians have no vote here. You gave up that right when you retreated to your hidden worlds. We retreated because we refused to kneel, Lyra replied. We chose isolation over slavery, but we have watched. We have waited. We hoped that one day someone would remember what it means to stand. She placed one luminescent hand on Jake's shoulder. The touch sent a tingle through his entire body. I name this human the voice of the galaxy, Lyra declared. Let all species hear his word and remember their own. Let the age of silence end. The chamber exploded again, but this time the energy was different. Jake saw delegates turning to each other, speaking in rushed whispers. Some were angry, but others looked almost relieved, as if they'd been waiting for permission to hope. Vectress drew his weapon. This is treason. The human dies. The Queen's ships will be hunted. Any delegate who supports this madness will face the full might of the Zrath Empire. Lyra didn't flinch. Then let your empire show its might. But know this, the Elysians have spent 87 years preparing. Our fleets are hidden no longer. Our weapons are not outdated relics. And we are not alone. A massive holographic display activated above the chamber. It showed star systems throughout the galaxy. And system after system, previously invisible ships were decloaking. Thousands of them. They bore the flowing script of Elysian design, but Jake also recognized other species' markings mixed among them. A coalition, Lyra said. Species who refused to bow, who hid their strength rather than surrender it, who waited for a spark to light the fire of rebellion. Jake's mind reeled. You've been planning this? Planning to survive, Lyra corrected. But survival without purpose is just slow death. You gave us purpose, Captain Morris. Your single word reminded us why we chose resistance over comfort. Vectress was speaking rapidly into a communication device. More Zrath guards were entering the chamber. The situation was seconds from turning into a bloodbath. We need to leave, Amara said urgently. Right now, Lyra nodded. My ship is docked beside yours. The Zrath will not fire on me without declaring open war, and they are not quite ready for that. Yet. She looked at Jake. But they will be soon. The question is, will the rest of the galaxy be ready to stand with us? Jake looked around the chamber. Most delegates still sat frozen in their seats, caught between fear and hope. A few were standing watching him with something that might have been admiration. Others were already leaving, clearly wanting no part of what was coming. I'm one human, Jake said. I can't speak for my entire species. I need to contact Earth. By the time Earth responds, the Zrath fleet will already be moving, Lyra said. This is the moment, Captain. The galaxy is watching. Will humanity stand? Or will you retract your word to buy a few more years of peace? Jake thought about Maya again, about the future she deserved. He thought about every human who'd looked up at the stars and dreamed of something better than Earth alone. He thought about the small blue alien bleeding out on the chamber floor for daring to speak. Humanity stands, Jake said. I'll face the consequences. Lyra smiled. Then let us ensure those consequences include victory. She turned to the assembly. Any species who wishes to join the coalition, follow us. Any who wish to remain slaves, stay seated. Choose now. For a long moment, no one moved. Then a delegate near the front stood. It was one of the three-headed beings. All three mouths spoke in unison. The Torvax Republic stands with humanity. Another delegate rose. Then another. Within seconds, delegates from dozens of species were on their feet. Not all of them, maybe not even half, but enough. More than Jake had dared hope. Vectress raised his weapon toward Lyra. You're making a mistake that will cost you everything. Perhaps, Lyra said, but slavery was costing us our souls. I prefer this gamble, she gestured, and a shimmering barrier appeared between the Zrath and the departing delegates. It wouldn't hold long, but it bought them seconds. Jake, Amara, and Chen ran with the Queen toward the exit. Behind them, Vectress was screaming orders. Weapon fire splashed against Lyra's barrier. They burst into the docking corridor. The ESS Horizon sat beside an Elysian ship that looked like a sculpture of light and metal. Other delegates were scrambling toward their own vessels. Get to your ship, Lyra instructed. Follow my vessel. We're going to neutral space where the coalition can gather without immediate attack. And then? Jake asked. And then we prepare for war, Lyra said. The Zrath will not forgive this. They cannot afford to. If they let your defiance stand, their entire empire crumbles. Jake reached the Horizon's airlock. Amara and Chen were already aboard running system checks. He paused at the threshold and looked back at Lyra. Why me? He asked. You've been waiting 87 years. You could have done this any time. Lyra's expression softened. Because revolutions need more than ships and weapons, Captain. They need symbols. They need moments that people remember. They need someone ordinary doing something extraordinary, showing others it can be done. She touched his cheek gently. Thank you for being brave enough to say no. Then she was gone, moving like quicksilver toward her own ship. Jake sealed the airlock and sprinted to the bridge. Amara had the engines hot. Chen was monitoring sensors that showed Zrath vessels moving to intercept. Multiple ships breaking orbit around the station, Chen reported. Zrath destroyers. They're forming a blockade. The Elysian ship is hailing us, Amara said. Lyra's face appeared on the view screen. Stay in formation with the coalition vessels. When I give the signal, jump to the coordinates I'm transmitting. Trust your engines, trust each other. We've never done a formation jump, Jake said. Our FTL is experimental at best. Then today you learn, Lyra replied. Now. The Elysian ship vanished in a flash of light. Jake didn't hesitate. Jump! The Horizon's experimental drive engaged with the sound like reality tearing. The universe twisted, stretched, and snapped back. When it stabilized, they were in deep space, surrounded by the coalition fleet. 47 ships from 47 different species, all of them broadcasting the same message. The age of silence had ended. Jake stared at the display. They'd actually done it. One word, and the galaxy had split in two. Captain, Amara said quietly, what do we tell Earth? Jake thought about his daughter, about every child on Earth who would grow up and whatever came next, about the choice between safety and freedom. Tell them the truth. Jake said, we've made allies. We've also made enemies, and we're about to find out if courage is enough. 3 days later, the Coalition fleet gathered at a system called Haven's Edge. It was an ancient Elysian outpost abandoned for decades, but still defended by automated weapons that could hold off a small invasion. The Coalition delegates met in a conference hall carved from an asteroid, each species bringing their own fears and hopes. Jake stood before them as the voice of the galaxy, a title he still didn't fully understand. Lyra stood beside him, regal and calm despite the approaching storm. The Zrath fleet will arrive within a week, Jake began. Our intelligence suggests they're committing significant forces. They want to end this rebellion before it spreads further. A Torvax delegate spoke, all three heads looking grim. Our combined fleet is perhaps 1/3 the size of what they're sending. Our technology is diverse, but not necessarily superior. How do we win this? We don't fight their fight, Jake said. He pulled up a tactical display. The Zrath expect us to meet them in open battle. Standard formation, ship against ship. They've fought that battle 1,000 times. They always win. Then what do you propose? Asked a delegate whose species Jake still couldn't pronounce. Humanity has a lot of experience with asymmetric warfare, Jake said. We've been fighting among ourselves for millennia. We've learned that superior numbers don't guarantee victory. Unpredictability does. Coordination does, making your enemy fight on terrain they don't understand. He expanded the display to show Haven's Edge system. This system has an asteroid belt dense enough to hide our fleet. It has gas giants with magnetic storms that will scramble their sensors. It has a neutron star whose gravitational effects make traditional FTL jumps nearly impossible. You want to turn our sanctuary into a battlefield, Lyra observed. I want to turn it into a trap, Jake corrected. The Zrath will come expecting to crush us. Instead, they'll find themselves fighting in conditions that favor smaller, more maneuverable ships. They'll find coordinated strikes from multiple species, each using their unique advantages. They'll find an enemy that refuses to play by their rules. Chen brought up additional data. We've been analyzing Zrath battle patterns from their previous conquests. They rely heavily on overwhelming firepower and intimidation. When those don't work immediately, they escalate rapidly. We can use that against them. Over the next hours, Jake outlined a battle plan that combined Elysian shields, Torvax speed, human tactical flexibility, and contributions from every species present. It wasn't perfect. They would take losses, but it gave them a chance. When he finished, the delegates were silent. Then the Torvax spoke again. You truly believe this will work? I believe we have a shot, Jake said, which is more than we'd have if we'd stayed silent. Lyra addressed the assembly. The Zrath have ruled through fear for generations. They've made you forget your own strength. Captain Morris has reminded you. Now the question is whether you'll remember long enough to fight. One by one, the delegates pledged their support. Not all of them were convinced they would survive, but all of them agreed it was worth trying. As the meeting dispersed, Lyra pulled Jake aside. "You understand that even if we win this battle, the war will continue? The Zrath will not stop. They cannot afford to." "I know," Jake said, "but every war has to start somewhere. Every change has to begin with someone saying no." "Your daughter," Lyra said. "Maya. You think of her often." Jake blinked. "How did you know her name?" "I am a queen of an ancient race," Lyra said with a small smile. "We have our sources. But more importantly, I see it in your eyes. You fight for her future." "I fight for all our futures," Jake said. "That is why I named you Voice," Lyra replied. "Because you speak not just for yourself, but for everyone who cannot speak. Even my people who have hidden for so long needed someone to remind us why we were hiding, what we were protecting." She placed both hands on his shoulders, and that same tingling sensation spread through him. "When the battle comes, stay alive, Captain Morris. The galaxy has found its voice again. It cannot afford to lose it so soon." The Zrath fleet arrived exactly when intelligence predicted. 87 warships, each one larger than anything the Coalition possessed. They dropped out of FTL at the system's edge and broadcast on all frequencies. "Rebel forces, you are surrounded and outmatched. Surrender immediately and you will be permitted to live as slaves. Resist, and you will be exterminated. You have 1 hour to decide." Jake stood on the Horizon's bridge, watching the massive force arrayed against them. Every instinct screamed that this was impossible. They were about to be slaughtered. Then Lyra's voice came over the Coalition channel. "All ships, remember why we're here. Remember what we're fighting for. Today we teach the galaxy that silence is not strength. Today we teach the Zatareth that tyranny has a cost." Jake activated his own channel. "Coalition fleet, this is Captain Morris. Deploy to designated positions. Wait for my signal. Trust the plan. Trust each other." The hour passed. The Zrath began their advance, their massive ships moving in perfect formation. They expected the Coalition to either flee or mount a desperate, doomed charge. Instead, the Coalition vanished. The smaller ships scattered into the asteroid belt. The larger vessels disappeared into the gas giant storms. The Zrath suddenly found themselves alone in apparently empty space. Vectress's voice crackled with anger. "Cowards! You hide like prey animals. It changes nothing. We will hunt each of you down." The Zrath fleet split into hunting groups, diving into the asteroids and storms. It was exactly what Jake had hoped for. Isolated, they lost their formation advantage. Surrounded by obstacles, their superior firepower became less decisive. "Now," Jake commanded. The Coalition struck from every direction at once. Torvak's ships, fast and agile, darted between asteroids to strike and retreat. Elysian vessels used their advanced shields to absorb hits that would have destroyed others, buying time for allies to strike. Human ships, small but equipped with surprisingly effective weapons, targeted weak points in Zrath armor. The battle became chaos. The Zerth tried to reform their lines, but every time they grouped, another Coalition ambush separated them again. Ships from species that had never fought together coordinated like they'd trained for years. But the Zrath were still formidable. Coalition vessels began to fall. Jake watched readouts as ships exploded, taking hundreds of lives with them. Each loss hit like a physical blow. "We're losing too many," Amara reported. "At this rate, we'll be overwhelmed in 30 minutes. Jake studied the tactical display. The Zrath were adapting, learning the Coalition's patterns. They needed something new, something unexpected. "Chen? Status on our experimental weapons?" Chen looked up, surprised. "The kinetic accelerator? It's untested, Captain. Might blow us up just as easily as them. But if it works, it could punch through a Zrath dreadnought's armor." Jake made his decision. "Charge it up. Cust, Amara. Plot a course directly at Vectress's command ship." "That's suicide," Amara said. "It's a statement," Jake replied. "Lyra said we needed symbols. Let's give 'em one." He opened the Coalition channel. "All ships, this is Morris. We're making a run at the Zrath command vessel. Draw their fire. Give us an opening." Lyra's voice came back immediately. "Understood. Elysian fleet, form up on the human ship. Give them a shield they can't ignore. The Horizon accelerated out of the asteroid field, burning straight toward the massive Zrath command ship. Behind them, Elysian vessels formed a protective wall. Around them, the rest of the coalition focused fire on anything trying to intercept. Vectrus saw them coming. His ship's weapons lit up, pouring fire toward the approaching threat. The Elysian shields absorbed hit after hit, their light growing brighter with each impact. Weapon charged, Chen reported. Firing solution locked. Fire, Jake ordered. The Horizon shuddered as it released a projectile moving at a significant fraction of light speed. It was barely visible, just a streak across the view screen. It hit the Zrath command ship's forward armor and punched straight through, the kinetic energy creating a cascade of secondary explosions. The command ship didn't explode, but it reeled, atmosphere venting from multiple breaches. Its weapons went offline. Vectrus's voice cut out mid-transmission. The Zrath fleet hesitated. For the first time in the battle, they weren't sure what to do. Their formation had been broken, their commander was wounded, and the prey they'd come to slaughter was still fighting. Jake pressed the advantage. All ships full assault. Don't give them time to regroup. The coalition surged forward. Ships that had been hiding, wounded, barely holding on, found new strength. They hit the Zrath from every angle, coordinated chaos that the regimented Zrath couldn't counter. Slowly, impossibly, the Zrath began to retreat. Not a rout, but a fighting withdrawal. They'd come to crush a rebellion, and instead found a war, one they weren't winning. As the Zrath fleet jumped to FTL, limping away from Haven's Edge, the Coalition channel erupted in celebration. Ships were broadcasting in dozens of languages, all of them saying the same thing. They'd won. Jake collapsed into his chair. They'd lost 17 ships, hundreds of lives, but they'd survived. More than that, they'd proven something. Lyra's face appeared on the view screen. She looked exhausted but radiant. Well done, voice of the galaxy. You've earned your title. We all did, Jake said. Every ship here, every species that chose to stand. The Zrath will return, Lyra warned. With more ships, more fury. Let them, Jake said. We'll be ready, and next time, we'll have more allies. Every species that was sitting in that council chamber staying silent, they watched this battle. They saw what's possible. He thought about Maya, safe on Earth, about the message he would send her, about the galaxy she would grow up in. The age of silence is over, Jake said. Courage is contagious, Your Majesty. We just proved it. Lyra smiled. Indeed we did, Captain. Indeed we did. The transmission ended. Jake looked at his crew, battered but alive. He looked at the Coalition fleet, damaged but unbroken. He thought about one word spoken in defiance and how it had changed everything. Outside the Horizon's viewports, the stars burned as they always had. But now they didn't seem quite so distant. Now they felt like home.